Today I want to talk about the search for paradise. You see, because as human beings, we are pleasure-seeking creatures in a way that animals are not. Animals have instincts and they biological drives that they have, that they're not pleasure-seeking creatures in the same way that a human being is. And the search for paradise is to find a place, a kind of state of being that is blissful, stress-free, problem-free, that is just pleasure and ease. And there is this instinct that people have to search out for paradise, and it could be because originally humanity was banished from the Garden of Eden. We lost paradise. That's the way the famous English poet talks about. He has a poem called Paradise Lost. So we're looking for Gan Eden. We're looking for paradise. And part of that search for paradise is expressed in the search for heaven. This, have you heard that expression, looking for heaven on earth? And something which is heavenly is something which is described as pure pleasure, pure blissfulness. The earthly existence is full of frustration, pain, obstacles. It's mundane, it's ordinary. There's drudgery, there's a grimness, there's the hassle. And we're looking for something that can just transcend that. And that's actually what the whole leisure and entertainment industry is built on. Escapism, to escape earth and find some kind of heavenly dimension, a return to the Garden of Eden, a return to paradise. And we need to try and find a way, how do we meet that need? And what does that mean for us? And is there a Torah framework to find this lost paradise and to find the state of bliss in this world? There's a very important moment in this week's Parsha Vayeitzei, where Jacob is going out on his journey. He's leaving home. He's fleeing his brother Esav. He's going towards Lavan, to the family, to find a job, to find a wife. And he has a long, hard journey ahead of him. And on the way, he lies down to sleep. And the Parsha says, it's a famous image, Vayachalom v'hinei sulam mutzav arza v'rosho magia hashamayma. And the Parsha describes that he had this vision of a ladder that was planted on earth and reached up to the heavens, and the angels were going up and down on it. And in essence, what this ladder represents is the connection between heaven and earth, because it's on the ground, but it goes all the way hashamayma, up to the heavens. The word in the Chumash that describes heaven is shamayim, the heavens. It's more than just the sky, it's the heavens. And so within this image and this dream is the answer to what we are looking for when we are searching out heaven on earth. And let's see what we can learn from it. The key, I think, to understanding the ladder of Jacob is the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot in chapter 2, Mishnah 17, where Rabbi Yossi says, V'chol ma'asecha yiyu l'shem shamayim. All of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. Interesting phrase. It's talking about dedicating ourselves to heaven. Now, what does that mean? So the Rambam explains it in great detail in his introduction to Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Yonah, in his commentary in Pirkei Avot, explains that really what it means is everything we do, we should have a higher cause in mind, a higher purpose in mind. It's not just what we're doing in the meantime to eat and to sleep and to function as human beings. There should be a higher cause, and that higher cause is to serve God, which we'll explain a little bit more. But once we understand this idea of living for heaven, then we can, which is what the Mishnah is talking about, which is to live for a higher cause, not just for ourselves, but in order to serve God and to reach greater things in life, not mere survival, then we can start to understand what Jacob's ladder is all about, because this came at a critical moment in Jewish history, came at a critical moment in the life, the personal life of Jacob as an individual, because he was about to go on this journey to find a wife, to get married, to earn a living, and there was so much ahead of him. He had so much trepidation. He was leaving home alone. He had nothing, and he didn't know what the future held in store for him. But really, God was giving him a picture. God was giving him a picture of the future of his life and a vision, not only for him, but for the Jewish people. And that's why this ladder becomes so important. And in essence, the message of the ladder is what the Mishnah is saying. Kol ma'asecha yiyu l'shem shamayim. All of your deeds should be for the sake of heaven. What he was really saying to Jacob, you're going now and you're going to go try and earn a living. You're going to work as a shepherd and earn a living. You're going to get married. You're going to have children. Don't think about those actions as simple survival. What you are doing is you are building the Jewish people. This is part of the future. You are doing something that is part of a divine mission. It is a divine mission what you're embarking upon, and that mission is really for the sake of heaven. You're going to be connecting heaven and earth. You're going to be doing things on the earth, but they're actually connected to a heavenly mission. So you think you're just getting married and having children, but actually what you're doing is you're going to give birth through your family to the 12 tribes of the Jewish people. The 12 sons of Jacob become the leaders of the tribes. That eventually forms the nucleus and the structure of the Jewish people. We are called Beit Yisrael, the house of Israel. Israel is the name of Jacob. We are that is who we became. So he was saying to Jacob, what you're doing, it looks like what you're doing is very mundane. It looks ordinary. It looks filled with hassles. It looks very much like it belongs on earth, but actually it is connected to the heavens, and you are doing something which is a much greater and higher cause. And so that vision of the ladder, then we can apply then back to our mission and say, that's how the ideal is that we should live for the sake of heaven, which means to realize that what we are doing is very lofty and noble and living for a higher cause. Certainly the mitzvahs that we do that God gave us, but even the things which we don't identify immediately as a practical, straightforward mitzvah, they can be mitzvahs. In other words, a straightforward, practical, clear mitzvah is something like putting on tefillin, taking a lulav. Those are clearly identified as one of the 613 mitzvahs. But actually what this mission is saying is everything we do can be transformed into a mitzvah if we do it for the sake of heaven. And then realize we're not just living for survival. When we eat and drink, it's in order that we have the strength and the energy to be able to do good, to serve Hashem, to earn a living, to support a family, to be a member of society. All of those different things come from that. And therefore the food is not the end, it is the means to the end. And everything that we're involved in, earning a living, we're not just earning a living in order to survive. It's to be able to support a family, to give charity, to support a community, to help a poor person, to be able to support one's own family with dignity. These are great mitzvahs. To get married, to have children. This is part of our mission on earth. And so every action that is done for that is part of that holy mission. And if we see it like that, then it is no longer mundane and ordinary and filled with the hassles of life. Of course, there's trials and tribulations, there's difficulties, but then it becomes lofty and noble. When a mother is changing a baby's nappy, she's not just physically changing a nappy, she's actually raising a child, building a Jewish family, doing something which is part of a God-given mission of a parent to look after a child, to raise the child, to work hard, to earn money, to be able to send a child to school, to train the child, to build a family, to be able to be a contributing member of society. All of these things become then the means to the end, and they're not the end in of themselves. And then when we connect it to heaven, then what we are really doing is saying that this is not ordinary, it doesn't belong to the earth. It looks like it does, and it elevates everything we do with tremendous meaning and purpose. And that's what Jacob says. When he wakes up, listen to the words he says. He says, look, he says, Ma norah hamakom hazeh. This place is awesome. He said, Achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh. God is here. Va'anochi lo yadati. And I didn't know. What does he mean when he says that? He's saying that I didn't realize Hashem can be everywhere. Hashem can be in the marketplace earning a living. It can be at home raising a child. It can be going for a walk, having a meal. All of that is part of where Hashem's presence can be felt. And then he goes on to say, this place is so awesome. Ein zeh ki im beit Elokim. This is the house of God. V'zeh shar lashamayim, and shar hashamayim, and this is the gateway to heaven. Meaning everything that we're involved in on this earth can be the gateway to heaven, and be filled with importance and holiness and meaning. And that's what the Mishnah is saying. Kol ma'asecha l'shem sham. All of your deeds should be for the sake of heaven. It's interesting, it doesn't say for the sake of God, it says for the sake of heaven, because heaven represents that we can bring heaven down onto earth. It means that this earthly existence looks like it's just earth, but actually it is doing something which has eternal relevance, because the heavens is where everything is recorded for eternity. It means we're not just being involved in something that we're doing right now and here today. It is something which has eternal relevance. That's what heavens means. But here comes the real kicker in all of this, because we were talking about that human need to search for paradise, for the paradise lost, for that blissful state. And actually what emerges here is something very interesting, and it's an insight that was highlighted by Viktor Frankl in recent generations, although this has been the foundational Torah idea for thousands of years. And he upended psychology, because until then the theories were, what is it that drives the person? What is the deepest human need? Some psychologists, some schools of thought said it's the desire for power. Others said it's the desire for pleasure, for physical pleasure. Freud and others said it's physical pleasure which drives a person. Viktor Frankl said, no, the deepest human need there is the search for meaning. And this is where this becomes so fascinating, because then it turns out we're looking for heaven on earth, and we're looking for this paradise lost. And actually, the place to look is not to find that place of an island of pleasure where everything is going to be stress-free and there are no demands which are made and everything is in physical perfection. That's not going to deliver heaven on earth. Firstly, because it's a futile exercise. It's almost impossible to create that kind of idyllic existence on an ongoing basis, even though there's this human need and we're constantly looking for escapism and forms of leisure to get there. It's futile because this world doesn't allow it. But actually, the real heaven on earth is within our grasp, because the heaven comes from that deep sense of being psychologically fulfilled by doing that which is meaningful. By connecting heaven and earth means all the daily things that we're involved in, we realize they are deeply meaningful. It's not just a matter of survival, it's actually meaning. And when we find meaning, then we find psychological peace, we find happiness. And so the heaven on earth is actually doing that which is l'shem shamayim. Jacob's ladder is a symbol for bringing that joy and that peace of mind and that wholeness of existence that is found in Shamayim, in the heavens, and bringing it right down here on earth. And we find that becomes the formula then for happiness. Infuse every moment of every day with meaning and purpose through the framework that Hashem gives us through His Torah, and from there we can do it. And so that you find, like, for example, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot in chapter 3. Mishnah 3, it says, if two people are sitting and they share words of Torah amongst themselves, then that becomes elevated. It says the divine presence comes to rest with them. and it says that if they don't do that, then it's just a gathering of scoffers who don't really understand the purpose of life and mock meaning and purpose, and that becomes empty. Chapter 3, Mishnah 4 says, if you've got three people sitting at the table, and you share words of Torah, then that table becomes like an altar. It's the table of God. Instead of the meal just being a meal where an appetite is filled, rather it becomes then a meaningful interaction, a connection to God. It becomes a gathering of the bonding of family, like a Shabbos table. That becomes a completely different experience. And then the Mishnah talks about being up at night and in the middle of the night, and then finding words of wisdom of Torah to focus on, or going on a journey and understanding that we can infuse, whether it is nature and journeys and sleep and eating and socializing, and every dimension of human existence gets infused with meaning and purpose, and it becomes uplifted. And then we can actually understand the pursuit of leisure and entertainment, because there is a human need for leisure and entertainment. But the real question is this: is the leisure, the entertainment, the kind of escapism, is that the end goal, or is that the means to the end? The Rambam has a fascinating analysis of this in his introduction to Pirkei Avot, where he says there in chapter 5, he says of the Shmona Prakim, the Rambam says, that a person could have, he gives interesting examples. He said a person may want gold on the walls of their house. Is that because they have a need for it, or is that something which is a means to the end of being able to, it's an interesting and colorful example, but on more down to earth, he quotes a statement of our sages that says, a beautiful home, in other words, a space to live in where you feel comfortable and there are nice things around you, or there are nice kelim naim, or beautiful things in your house, marchivim es dato shel adam. They expand a person's consciousness, meaning there is a human need to see beauty. Human beings need to see beauty in nature, in art, in the world around them. It's not to say that is an illegitimate need. It's there and it's real. But actually, what the Rambam explains, and he's explaining all of this in the context of that Mishnah that we quoted, everything we do should be for the sake of heaven. Meaning, in the pursuit of beauty, it's not because we are seeking entertainment or leisure or something beautiful to look at. He talks about looking at beautiful pictures. We're not doing that in order to have the gratification of the pleasure as the end goal. We're doing that, we're looking for that experience of pleasure and beauty so that we can be filled with energy and optimism and refreshed in life and seeking the leisure and the entertainment so that we can serve Hashem, so that we can be a better do our work better, be a better husband and wife, a better father and a mother, a better child, a better Jew, serving Hashem, giving charity, being a productive member of society, learning Torah. We need the emotional energy to do that, and sometimes by looking at beautiful things, we get that emotional energy. But the beautiful things is not the paradise. That's not the paradise that we seek. The paradise that we seek is the meaning of heaven. All of these other things are the means to the end. And so then it frames everything that we do, including that human need for escapism and for leisure and for entertainment. That can be very powerfully positive if it can be used for the sake of accessing the motivation that we need and the joy of life that we need in order to serve Hashem properly. And so everything that is involved should be for the sake of heaven. That's what the Mishnah is saying. Kol ma'asecha l'shem shamayim. Everything should be for the sake of heaven. And when everything's for the sake of heaven, then we bring heaven down onto earth. There's one final idea here about accessing heaven and bringing heaven down onto earth. And this is what God says to Jacob when he has this vision. He shows him the vision of the ladder, and then God says to him, these words. He says, Vehinei anochi imach. I am with you. I am with you. Now that doesn't mean I am with you in order to do something for you. It just means I am with you. Like if you see the verse then continues, Ushmarticha b'chol asher talech. I will watch over you. That's the next part of the verse. He's saying, I'll look after you, I'll bring you back here. But before that, he just says, Hina anochi imach. I'm with you. I'm with you, and that sense of being present, having God with us, that is part of heaven. See, what is the difference between heaven and earth? One of the defining things, and it says in the book of Psalms, Hashamayim shamayim laHashem. The heavens belong to God, v'ha'aretz natan livnei adam, and earth he gave to man. Meaning, of course, God is everywhere. God doesn't have a body. He's everywhere, Hashem Echad. But when one is in heaven, in the world of the souls, God's presence is obvious. It's there. You can see it. You can connect with Him. There's a comfort in that. In this world, God's presence is hidden. This world, olam, comes from the word ne'elam. It's hidden. God's presence is hidden. It's not obviously here. And so there's this existential loneliness that a person feels. Part of bringing heaven on earth is to know not only about the meaning and the purpose of what we discussed, but it is also to bring heaven on earth is to live with God in this world, to know that we're not alone. And that's why in these Mishnahs that we quoted earlier, isn't it beautiful? It says you've got two people who are just socializing, then it's empty. But if they talk words of Torah, the Shekhinah, the divine presence comes to be with them. And when you have people doing a mitzvah and you come to pray together, the Shekhinah, the divine presence comes. There's this concept, and it comes up in a number of places in Pirkei Avot, the idea of the Shekhinah, the divine presence. The Shekhinah means that God is more present. God doesn't have a body. You can't say He's more in one place than in another. But the way that we perceive God, our access to Him, there is a sense of presence. The Shekhinah is the divine presence. It is a very beautiful dimension of who we become and what it is to serve Hashem. And so the heaven on earth is that when we lead a life which is meaningful, which is purposeful, based on the Torah and the mitzvahs, what we are actually doing is not only getting the sense of psychological well-being by doing something which is for a higher cause and a meaning and a connection to God, and knowing that what we're doing is not just for the here and now, it is something which has eternal value. It is also the deep, profound comfort in knowing we are not alone in this world. And that is so important. You know, when the mitzvah of Shiva, of going to comfort the mourners, the halacha is, Jewish law teaches you don't say anything. In fact, you're not allowed to speak in a Shiva house unless the mourner speaks to you. So because it's not about going to say something that is somehow going to make them feel better. It's just to say, you're not alone. I'm here with you. You're going through a hard time. I'm here. And for a human being, just to know there's someone there with you, that is where love and family and friendship comes from. Just to have another person who's with you. And the ultimate comfort is Hashem Himself. the creator of the universe, who loves us more than we can even begin to imagine, who has created all of this, just to know He's with us. And when we do His mitzvahs, when we do things of value and holiness, the Shekhinah, we can feel Him more. We feel His presence closer. So that becomes the ultimate creation of heaven on earth. That is the paradise. That is what we are seeking. And that's what we lost in the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, we had Hashem's presence. We could feel Him. We could see there was a closeness. When we were banished from the Garden of Eden, our ancestors, Adam and Eve, we lost that paradise. It was paradise lost, and we're searching for it. We want to go back there, but the real place to find it is by bringing heaven on earth, by doing that which is meaningful for the higher cause, and at the same time feeling that Hashem is with us. And then we have the strength, we have the confidence, we have the comfort to meet all of the challenges and seize all of the opportunities.